If you want to be making money sports betting, there's a few things you absolutely need to avoid. Hello, my name is Logan. I'm a student at Harvard studying statistics, astrophysics, and computer science. And today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the 7 biggest red flags that I see in unsuccessful sports bettors. Keep in mind, most sports bettors lose money and lose a lot of money. And that's because they often slip into some really bad habits, but it's pretty hard to tell if you've slipped into these habits yourself. So I'll be covering what these habits are, how you can tell if you've slipped into them, and what you can do to break these habits if you have slipped into them. So let's talk about these red flags. First, I want to note that these red flags are in descending order, so the ones that I talked about earlier are both more common and more severe than the ones I get to later. So for my biggest and most common red flag that I see in so many sports bettors, it's placing bets based on your own gut intuitions or on publicly available information. It should really go without saying not to place bets based on your gut intuitions. A lot of people get into sports betting thinking that they might know more than sportsbooks and be able to make money off of that, but they're sorely mistaken. Keep in mind that sportsbooks are multi-million-dollar organizations that pour thousands of man-hours into perfecting their sports projection models. It's incredibly difficult to beat these models on your own, and it's especially difficult to beat these by the 4 to 5% that you need in order to beat out the sportsbook's fee. So definitely don't place sports bets based on your own gut intuitions. But a lot of people already know that. A much more common mistake than basing your bets on gut intuitions is basing your bets on publicly available information or statistics. For example, you might look up, what's the most hitter-friendly ballpark in baseball? Unsurprisingly, you'd find that it's Coors Field. So you might go place a bet for over on runs on a Rockies home game. That would be a mistake. Keep in mind that just because you're able to find that Coors Field is the most hitter-friendly ballpark doesn't mean that sportsbooks don't already know that. Of course they do. They're baking that information into the odds already. Or I see a lot of sports bettors do research on weather. You might be looking at what's the weather right now in Denver and see that there's a 10-mile-per-hour wind towards the outfield, which would be boosting the hitter's hits. And that would lead you to place a bet on the over. But the sportsbooks are able to find the weather too. So when you find publicly available information and base your bets off of it, the sportsbooks have already beat you to it. They're very good at their job and they're very good at setting lines. So if you're basing your bets off of information that they already have, you're going to be losing money. All right, now let's get into my second red flag. And this one is probably the biggest one in terms of making money. And that is, don't just be on one sportsbook. For example, say you follow Alex Monahan on Twitter. First of all, great decision. You see that he's taking Matt Chapman over 1.5 total bases for the game tomorrow at plus 125 on FanDuel. But you only have Fliff. You know Alex is a very successful bettor, so you want to tail the pick, so you take it on Fliff, which is at plus 100 right now. Keep in mind, most successful bettors profit maybe 5% in the long run, and you're getting 25% less payout by taking it on Fliff as opposed to what Alex would be getting by taking it on FanDuel. So if most profitable bettors are making 5% and you're getting 25% worse payout on your book, now that's not just a bad bet, that's a horrible bet. If you're going from plus 5% to minus 20%, you're really taking a horrible bet there. So by limiting yourself to just one book, you're shooting yourself in the foot by forcing yourself to take worse prices on things. In fact, if you see a bet that someone takes that's mathematically profitable at plus 120 and your book only offers plus 110, odds are you shouldn't take it. No matter how good the person who's taking that bet is, that 10% difference is make or break. So by diversifying across sportsbooks, you're able to line shop and find the best prices. Think of it like buying a car. If you were buying a car, would you go to just one dealership to see what the price is? Or would you check across 10 dealerships and take whatever the cheapest is? I have a strong suspicion that you'd find a better price by checking at 10 locations than just going to one. It's the same with sportsbooks. Get yourself on as many as you can so you can get the best prices on your bets. Now, that's the main reason to diversify, but a side incredible bonus is that sportsbooks give you ridiculous incentives to get you to sign up. I believe there's an OddsJam video that counts up all the incentives that you can get by being 21 years old and in the United States, and the total comes out to over $15,000. So just by signing up on all of these sportsbooks, you're benefiting yourself both by getting better lines and better odds, and also by making a bunch of cash off of the sign-up bonuses. So don't limit yourself to just one sportsbook. It's a horrible decision in a lot of rights. Get on as many sportsbooks as you can, get those boosted lines, and get your deposit bonuses and make some cash. It's also worth mentioning that by having multiple sportsbooks, you open yourself up to the world of arbitrage betting, which allows for risk-free profits. With arbitrage betting, if sportsbooks disagree heavily on how likely an event is to happen, and their lines actually cross, you can bet on both sides of an event and guarantee a risk-free profit. For example, you can see here Pinnacle is paying out plus 111 for under 9.5, where Circa is at minus 105 for over 9.5 for runs on this Rockies game. You can see that plus 111 is bigger than minus 105, so by betting on both sides of it, you can guarantee a return. Imagine you were able to bet $500 on this minus 105. You'd have to bet $462.65 on the other side, and you'd walk away with a guaranteed profit of $14, no matter what happens in the game. So by having multiple sportsbooks, you open yourself up to the opportunity of betting on opposite sides of an event on those sportsbooks and guaranteeing a profit. All right, on to my third big sports betting red flag, and that's when people hate on positive EV betting. A lot of people don't really understand what positive EV betting is or why it works. They'll say something along the lines of, how can you be making profitable bets just by looking at what lines are at on other sportsbooks? So I'll give a similar analogy. Let's go back to the car example we were looking at earlier. Imagine you have a used car, and you take that used car to 10 different dealerships, and every single one of them tells you that your car is worth $15,000. Now, you take that same used car to an 11th dealership, and they tell you that they'll give you $25,000 for that car. You have a pretty good idea, according to the market consensus, that your car is worth $15,000. So by selling it for $25,000, you're getting $10,000 more than your car is worth. Similarly, if you look at the entire sports betting market, you can gather a market consensus of how likely an event is to happen. Now, if one particular sportsbook is an outlier and is giving you a way better payout than they should based on that implied probability, then you have a profitable bet. For example, looking at this Matt Chapman example from earlier, you can see everywhere is paying out plus 100, at most plus 108 for him to go over 1.5 total bases. So everyone agrees that it's just nearly like a 45% chance or so that he goes over 1.5 total bases. Now, FanDuel is paying out plus 125. They're an outlier by a significant margin relative to the rest of the market. So this is like your 10 car dealerships from Fliff, 10Bet, DraftKings, Hot Streak, Pinnacle. All these are telling you, yeah, it's around plus 100 to plus 108. And FanDuel is saying, well, how do you like plus 125? They're giving you a way better payout than they should. So, positive EV betting is mathematically grounded, and it is the most consistent and most profitable strategy for you to employ as a sports bettor. All right, now let's move on to my fourth red flag. To be totally honest, I think this might be the one that I see most frequently amongst my friends and on social media, and that's playing suboptimal slips on DFS books. For example, if you're a Prize Picks user and you take a 2, 3, or 4 pick, you're mathematically making a horrible decision. There is no situation on Prize Picks where a 2, 3, or 4 pick is an intelligent decision. You always want to be taking 5 or 6 pick flexes. To illustrate this, let's look at the OddsJam Fantasy Optimizer. You can see we have some very profitable plays that are highlighted in green here, some that have chances to hit over 55%. If we did a 2-pick slip with the 2 best plays available on the entire market, our EV is negative 6%. If we bump it up to a 3-pick, it's negative 15%. Now we'll take it off flex, it's negative 12%, bump it up to a 4-pick, no flex, it's negative 4%, with flex, it's negative 9%. So these are the 2, 3, and 4 best picks that are available on the entire sports betting market right now on Prize Picks. And all of them lose you money if you take a 2, 3, or 4 pick. There is no situation when you should be making 2, 3, or 4 pick plays on Prize Picks. Now, other apps have similar rules. For example, on Underdog, you want to be taking 5-man flexes and maybe occasionally a 3-man power or a 5-man power. On No House Advantage, you want to be taking 5-man powers. On Parlay Play, you want to be doing 6-man flexes. On Jock Market, you want to be doing 5-man flexes. And if you're taking anything else on these DFS books, you are shooting yourself in the foot. The only way to make money on these particular DFS books is to take the most profitable type of slip they offer. Otherwise, you're making things way, way harder, if not impossible, on yourself in order to make money on these DFS books. All right, now onto my 5th red flag for sports betting, and that's cash outs. You can see after the Nuggets won a championship the other day, some dude is really kicking himself because he cashed out a 3-leg parlay for $25 that would have won $72,000, and that was for the Chiefs, UConn, and Denver Nuggets to all win their championships, which of course they did. So after one of these legs hit, this dude cashed out for less than a $100 profit. And that leads me to my point about cash outs. Sportsbooks are never going to offer you a profitable cash out. They set the cash out lines themselves, and they're never going to set something that works against them. If you take a cash out, you're doing something that benefits the sportsbook because they wouldn't offer you the cash out in the first place if it would hurt them. So instead of taking a cash out, some better alternatives are either hedge your bet. For example, this dude could have bet on the Heat in the finals if he let this bet ride, and that would have made him some money instead of, losing to the cash out. Or just let your bet ride. I don't understand the concept of backing out on a bet in the first place. Like this dude here, after the Chiefs won, this parlay looks great. He has 3 legs and one of them's already down. If you wanted to just bet on the Chiefs and you're afraid of the other 2 legs, then you should have bet on the Chiefs as a straight bet. So I'm fundamentally against cash outs for those 2 reasons. 1, it doesn't make sense in principle, and 2, it doesn't make any sense mathematically. So if you're looking to be safe and you have a big parlay down that's looking really good and you want to lock in some guaranteed profit, don't cash out. At the very worst, you can hedge it, but I recommend just let it ride, man. Have some fun. All right, now onto my 6th red flag with sports betting, and this one's a personally touchy subject. For some reason, it drives me absolutely insane when I see people post 4, 5, or 6 leg parlays, call them bankroll builders, and they have payouts of like minus 100 or plus 110 or something. For example, looking at this 5-leg parlay that some dude posted during the NBA playoffs, you can see you're taking a minus 1900 for LaMelo to make 2 threes, a minus 650 on Brandon Ingram to get under 8.5 rebounds. So sure, each of these legs individually is very, very likely to happen, but as a whole, the parlay is at minus 108, and you need 5 things to happen. A 5-leg parlay for minus 108 is never a good idea, and here's a reason why. So on any particular sports bet, sportsbooks are taking 4 or 5% VIG. Now, it's incredibly difficult to beat that VIG on very safe plays because the payouts are very low, so the EV can't really be that high. So now, you have to assume that when you're taking a really big long shot, you're going to be losing to VIG. So if you now compile that 5 times, you go from losing to the 4 to 5% VIG once to doing it to the 5th. So 0.95 to the 5th means your parlay now has an expected value of negative 23%. So you have a negative 23% EV play, and you're getting a minus 108 payout. This is just absolutely delusional sports betting. There is no situation where you should take a 5-leg parlay that pays out minus 108. Even if someone says it's a bankroll builder, it's at minus 108, it's not worth it. These are horrible plays. Please steer clear of them. All right, now we're on to my 7th and final red flag. I saved this one for last because ultimately it's mostly a matter of personal preference, but the red flag is betting on too many parlays. So, to be extraordinarily clear, if every single leg of your parlay is profitable, then the parlay as a whole is profitable. So nothing about betting on parlays is inherently not profitable. Also, if you're following Kelly criterion, you're doing everything you can mathematically in order to negate variance or reduce the amount of ups and downs you see in your bets. But ultimately, parlays bring variance because you're either going to have a really big win or there's a really good chance you go on a long cold streak. So there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. If you prefer to avoid those ups and downs, I recommend taking straights. So there might be some months as a parlay bettor where you make $3,000, $5,000, and then you might go on a 2-3 month run of losing money. And that really sucks. So I instead recommend taking straights. It'll make your returns much more consistent and predictable, and that's the sports betting experience that I personally prefer. It's ultimately up to you, and you can be profitable betting on parlays, but it's just not my preference. So I recommend straights if it's something you're interested in. All right, so that covers my 7 biggest red flags that I see in a lot of sports bettors. I hope you guys learned a lot about the strategies and habits that you should avoid falling into. And ultimately, I want this to be a learning experience for all of you. So please, if you have any questions about the things that I've talked about, feel free to leave a comment and I'll get back to you to hopefully teach you a little bit more about sports betting. I appreciate you guys for sticking around to the end of the video. I hope you learned a lot, and I look forward to talking to you guys again soon.